What's up, Physique Training Nation? So today, this is the most requested video that I get from multiple people every single day. Question all related to this topic. How do I get rid of stubborn belly fat and build visible six-pack abs? So today I'm going to go into the big nuggets of that, and a lot of it I'm just going to be talking at you just like this, as though we're bros, you know, talking at you just like this on those three golden nuggets, which is training, nutrition, and cardio, the best strategies to shrink your belly, reduce belly fat, and actually see some visible six-pack abs. So we'll save some exercises for the end. So we'll save kind of the training component until the end. But just to give you a quick introduction to that, people always say that abs are grown in the kitchen. Well, I call absolute BS on that, and you may have seen me talk about this multiple times. I've written about it in tnation.com, in various places, and I cover it in my Ultimate Abs book, which you can find at all good bookstores, by the way, throughout the UK and USA. Ultimate Abs, the definitive guide to developing a chiseled six-pack. So you can find that there. Abs need resistance like every other muscle. So they need to be taken through loaded exercises, through resistance, in order to grow and to develop those more deeply chiseled abs. Like any muscle, they need to become thicker and more dense. Now that doesn't mean that you are increasing the size of your waist. That's not how your abdominals grow. But if you have poorly developed abdominals, i.e. you think it's all about diet, no resistance training is needed, or you're just throwing in a bunch of, half effort crunches at the end of your workout and not importing kind of progressive overloads to that, then it's actually not going to be developing the abdominals you want. So my first tip here is, first off, think about the resistance training that you're doing as one component that's needed. Your diet also is the thing that's going to unveil your abs. It's going to be the thing that helps you reduce body fat and actually unveil the muscle that you've built from your loaded abdominal training. So diet. Now, I'm going to be as simple as I possibly can with this, because I think so many people overcomplicate things, and the more and more information that you read out there on diet, it almost just gets even more complicated. So we're going to go straight back down to the point. When I'm onboarding a new online coaching client, my goal for those first few weeks is to simply find your current maintenance calories. Now, you might already be on your maintenance calories. If your weight hasn't changed in a few weeks, few months, by definition, you are on your maintenance calories, okay? Now, I know what you're thinking. You're probably overthinking it and being like, oh, this isn't my maintenance calories, blah, blah, blah. I can't have 3,000 calories be my maintenance calories, or 1,500 calories be my maintenance calories, because I read this or I read that. Forget it. By definition, if your weight has remained the same, you right now are on your maintenance calories, okay? For whatever reason that might be. Your current level of input of calories and your output have equated your maintenance calories. So my first thing here is, when I'm onboarding a client, is to find their maintenance calories if we don't already know their maintenance calories. All we're gonna do from there is simply make sure that they're hitting some protein goals. I would tend to suggest at minimum 2 grams per kilo of body weight as protein. So let's say you weigh 100 kilos, all right, you're gonna be having about 200 grams a day of protein, just as a starting point. Again, don't overthink it. We can argue a little bit more of that, a little bit less of that, whatever, but don't overthink it. And then the rest of your macronutrients, your carbohydrates and fats, the rest of your calories left, okay, that's basically where those go into. So your fats are 9 calories per gram, your proteins 4 calories per gram, your carbohydrates are 4 calories per gram. So the calories you have left over, taking out the total amount of protein that you've had within your diet, goes towards the carbohydrates and fats, which are your fuel calories. And again, I'm trying to keep this as simple as I possibly can. From a calories perspective, if you simply focus on, to start off with, look, if we're talking about elite physique competitors, a little bit different, right? But for 90% of you out there, this will work. Focus on protein, hitting that 2 grams per kilo of body weight as a starting point, and then your calories, which basically you found your maintenance calories. Once you found your maintenance calories, drop 10 to 20% of those calories out of things, all right? As simple as that. So that's how we create the deficit from the start, is by simply dropping your calories by 10 to 20%. That's it. And then seeing what happens for a few weeks. You might see a 1 pound weight loss, 2 pound weight loss, 0.5 kilos, 1 kilo, whatever, all right? But we know we've now established maintenance, now we've established where that deficit needs to be. Obviously, as weeks go on, we can change things, we can increase the deficit, decrease the deficit, whatever. But initially, that's the only steps you need to take to make sure that you are in the deficit and ensure that fat loss is happening. Keep it simple, don't overthink it, don't be thinking need low carb, need low fat, whatever. You eat according to your dietary preferences. If you prefer slightly lower carb, go slightly lower carb. You go slightly lower fat. If you prefer slightly lower fat, go slightly lower fat. That's absolutely fine. Calories and protein, most important. Fats and carbs, kind of interchangeable as far as the calories go. So that's your nutrition to start off with, all right? Keeping it as simple as we possibly can. Okay, cardio. Now, again, I'm gonna keep this as simple as I possibly can, because you see so many videos and social media posts that really just overcomplicate it. Whereas so many of you can just benefit from going back to basics, not overthinking it, and just executing the most simplest of things. Now, we've obviously gone over nutrition, just some absolute basics, all right? But I bet you most of you wouldn't have even thought about it as being that simple. Just establish maintenance calories, drop 10 to 20% off of those, focus on protein, and by definition, you will be in, because we've got 10 to 20% less calories come in, you will be in a deficit, providing that your calorie output is the same as what it was before. When we're starting out in a fat loss phase, I actually don't include cardio from the off. I would prefer to create most of that deficit by basically through diet. So we focus on the resistance exercise side of things, and then we focus on nailing the diet. Once that diet starts to stall, or our weight loss and fat loss starts to stall through diet, then we can start to increase calorie output. Now, we're not talking about separate things that we might implement as well, non-exercise physical activity, making sure you're getting your daily steps in, things like that. There are other things, other tools that we can use, and other things I can kind of keep you accountable for and make sure that you're hitting. But when we talk about implementing cardio, we're holding it off for as long as we possibly can. So we hold it off until we get to the point where diet kind of has slowed down a little bit as far as the fat losses goes, and as far as we want to take that. We don't really want to reduce calories even more at this stage, so let's increase output. Now again, let's not overthink it. As you can see right now, I'm on a treadmill. I'm walking, I'm on an incline. I'm not doing this, okay, as a lot of people are doing, or on the Stairmaster, just kind of leaning forward. That is not increasing much output. But all I'm doing, I'm walking on an incline. I'm currently on an 8 incline, and I'm walking at a moderate pace of 4 kilometers per hour. So like maybe 2.5 miles per hour, something like that. Now, this for me is not that hard. If I was actually doing this as cardiovascular work, I'd probably have this on like a 9, 10 incline. I'd maybe have it at maybe 5.5, 6 kilometers per hour, or the equivalent in miles per hour, maybe sort of 3.5 miles per hour, 3.7 miles per hour. And cardio work is exactly like your resistance exercise. There's an intensity. Now, the intensity we're talking about here is spending most of your time in that zone 2. Now, zone 2 is about 65 to 75% of your maximum heart rate. Your maximum heart rate is 220 minus your age, okay? It's not going to give you an exact figure, but that's a good starting point. 220 minus your age, find your 65 to 75% of that number, all right? And that will be your zone 2 cardio. So when I'm doing zone 2 cardio, I'm looking for my heart rate to be maybe 120-ish, okay, give or take, just as a rough estimate. Now, we're not talking about going on the ski erg. We're not talking about rowing and blasting and doing high intensity interval training. And I know I'm kind of going off on a tangent here, so I'll kind of reel it into you. All we're talking about is having your base level of calories, increasing that deficit through diet, and then maybe adding in 25 to 40 minutes, absolute tops, of zone 2 cardio, maybe 3 to 5 days each week. All right. Now, how easy is that? It's so easy, but that's where most people fall short of the requirements needed to lose body fat, in that they blast it out with, you know, some high intensity interval training or things that are so kind of joint impact heavy and kind of eat into that recovery capacity that they can't keep it up consistently. The reason I like incline walking is because it just does not interfere with the resistance side of our exercises. It's very, very easy to recover from. And also, let's be honest, if we wanted to watch a YouTube video, if we want to listen to a podcast, if we want to read a book, it's really, really easy to do it right now. Obviously, I'm going a little bit slower than what I might normally do, but that's one of the reasons why I'm a big fan of walking. So we've got our diet basics, we've got our cardiovascular basics there to help create that energy deficit. That's going to help reduce our body fat. Next up, we're going to go into the resistance exercise side of things, and I'm going to show you just a few of my favorite exercises to grow your abdominals. So let's dive into those exercises. So three of my favorite exercises to grow your six-pack abs. Now, we're not talking about core training here. Core training is basically when we're improving core and spinal, hip, pelvic stability. When we're trying to focus on isolating your abdominals or your rectus abdominis, that six-pack muscle, we're talking about a lot more in terms of flexion-based movements, and movements almost where your knees are coming up or your legs are raising towards your chest. So one of my most favorite exercises for this is the basic kneeling abdominal cable crunch. The reason why it's one of my favorites is because it's one of the easiest to implement that progressive overloading strategy into, because one week we can be using, you know, the stack to a certain height, the next week we might take the pin down, the next week we might take the pin down, or we might add reps to that as well. It's really easy to progressively overload. So here's how to do those correctly. All I've got is my rope attachment, aka my donkey bollocks. Okay, excuse my British terminology. Google it if you're American. So all we're going to be doing is just coming back, and I'm going to keep that cable over my head in the same position, almost on my forehead. I can have it a little bit higher if I want to, but I'm going to keep it in the same position throughout. Hips are forwards, and all I'm doing is focusing on pulling my rib cage down towards my pelvis and maximally flexing my spine over. So I'm not sitting my butt on my heels. That's a really common error I see. We're staying over and forwards. Our hip flexion angle is roughly the same throughout, and I'm just flexing by pulling my rib cage down towards my pelvis. So kind of closing the space between my rib cage and my pelvis. As I come down, I'm deeply exhaling as I come all the way down. Okay, big stretch, deep exhale. Okay, so big stretch, big flex. So that's how to correctly perform kneeling cable abdominal crunches. I'm going to show you another abdominal crunch variation that I'm a big fan of next. Seated abdominal cable crunches. So we're going to be using the cables again, and just like the previous exercise, there's a reason why we do it in the cables, because it's easy to apply that progressive overload. There's a bunch of dumbbell-based exercises, there's a bunch of machines that also work really well. But just as a starting point, cables are a good one to start to get used to if you're gradually building up that load in your abdominals, or it's the first time you're kind of exploring doing a little bit more than throwing in a few high rep crunches at the end of your workout. Okay, crunches in a cable system are a really easy way to start doing those, as I said, because it's easy to take that cable pin down over time or add reps. All right, so seated, I pulled my bench up. I've got my rope above my head, and I'm going to keep it in relatively the same point. Now, as opposed to the kneeling crunches, this is a little bit more of a flexion movement where I've got more load in the bottom range. So I don't get a lot in that kind of extended position at the top, that stretch, but I get a lot in that bottom range. So I'm keeping it over my head. I've got my knees wide, almost though I'm doing kind of like a sumo deadlift. And I'm just going to flex down the elbows between my thighs, really big squeeze, exhale at the bottom. Stretch as much as I can at the top. So exhale, squeeze, stretch at the top. So most of that load is at the bottom. Don't get too much at the top. But if you're looking for one where your abs are going to feel pummeled by the end and easy to progress over a few weeks, then a seated cable crunch is a go-to option for both myself and implementation with a lot of my clients as well. So as part of your targeted abdominal training, it's a really good idea to think about targeting them in two different ways. The first way be more flexion focused exercises. The second be more posterior tilt focused exercises. To keep that simpler and to kind of visually know what I'm talking about, what we're talking about really is exercises where your pelvis is posteriorly tilting, all right? Now, basically, we're talking about exercises where we're bringing our knees up towards our chest. Now, one of the first ones that comes to mind is obviously a hanging knee raise or a straight leg raise off like a decline bench or something like that. So we want to be doing flexion focus exercises, i.e. crunch type variations, and we also want to be doing leg raise type variations or reverse crunch type variations as well. So here's how to perform a correct leg raise, okay, or knee raise we'll perform, all right? So you can use straps if you want to for this one, if your grip's gonna give up. You can also use like some ab slings to hold you in, really big fan of those, or like a captain's chair, really big fan of that as well. We're gonna be doing it like in a chin-up bar today. So whatever grip you want, okay, we can do a wide overhand grip, we can do an underhand grip, whatever's gonna be a strong grip, because we don't want your grip getting in the way. Now all we're gonna be doing here is initiating that movement by contracting our abdominals. So a big stretch, contract our abdominals to raise our knees as high as we possibly can, and then all the way down to the bottom. Now, most of that movement, that first half of the movement in a way, is hip flexion, okay? Now, hip flexion isn't gonna be working our abdominals much. It's only when we get to the top that we posteriorly tilt our pelvis that we're truly working our abdominals. So making sure that you're taking your abdominals in that range of motion that's actually gonna be working them is gonna be key. You can start with a bent knee position. Over weeks, that might progress into more of a straight leg type of movement. And that's your kind of your load progression right there. So the key with training your abs and building your abs is sticking with those exercises for an extended period of time, or those types of exercises for an extended period of time, progressively overloading them, add some reps, add some weight, or add some weight by increasing the lever arm, i.e. extending your knees a little bit more, but sticking to them for an extended period of time and progressing them on, pushing them on in order to trigger those muscles to get stronger and to start growing. At the same time as doing those, you've also got your diet, your cardio in check, which is helping unveil that muscle tissue that you're growing at the same time. Now there's a lot more we can get into in this video, and we really have just kind of touched the surface, but hopefully that gives you a really great starting point to start and implement right away. Main point being, really don't overthink it. Hopefully you've got some very simple strategies you can go away with right now and put to use today. Anyway guys, look, hope you enjoyed the video. Any future requests, let me know. As always, my idea is to show you the exercises, give you ideas, give you inspiration. If you want the implementation, then obviously I do offer an online coaching program where you can work with me personally or my team to make sure that you are on track, on target, and hitting predetermined goals every 3, 6, 12, 3 months down the line. Let me know, I'll put the link below if you are interested in that. Otherwise, make sure you like the video and please do subscribe to my YouTube channel.